Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
And we're back. Good morning, actually, and welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm Marlene Cuellar.
And I'm Isara Quetzada. Good
And
morning.
thank you for joining us this morning.
Overcast Monday morning.
That's right. A little rainy.
Yeah,
But at least it keeps things cool.
certainly does.
Yeah.
Certainly does.
We're gonna
What are we saying from the weather?
Well, we're going to find out what we can expect for today. And we're going to get our, there we go, we got our forecaster on the line. Catherine Cumberbatch, good morning.
Good morning, dear. Good morning, Miss Marlene. Good morning.
How are you?
I am here. I am okay. I'm not going to complain. I'm going to give thanks.
Okay, that's fantastic. So tell us about our weather for today.
Okay, sure. As you know, Marlene, over the weekend we had some a little bit of moisture, but that moisture is started depleting, and our forecast is going for today is going for sunny skies with a few cloudy spells, and we expect that high temperatures will reach 86 along the coast, to 89 inland, and 72 in the hills. As for tonight, we expect partly cloudy skies and low temperatures to drop to 76 along the coast, 68 inland, and 60 in the hills. We still expect a few brief showers early this morning, especially along central coastal areas. And after that, we expect that the shower activity will be isolated for the rest of the day. And then tonight, we expect little to no rainfall. As for the winds will be coming out of the east at 5 to 15 knots, and the sea state will be light sharp.
Okay.
Yeah, the outlook for Tuesday and Tuesday night is for fair and warm weather to prevail with no rainfall. And that's basically the forecast.
All right. And so this is the last bit of rain for us.
For now.
For now.
For now. Yeah, that's right. We expect the rest of the week we should be experiencing a gusty east to southeasterly airflow across that will be affecting us.
Well, that's fantastic, because I was wondering what happened to the March weather.
Yes, so the March weather is coming back. So you'll be getting winds east to southeast at 15 to 25 knots.
All right.
That's right. Yeah, man.
Well, Ms. Cumberbatch, thank you for delivering that good news, and you do have a great day today.
You too, my dear, and stay safe.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
There you have it.
Yep. March weather is going to be back after the rains today, Marlene. Don't worry.
That's right. And if you're concerned about the showers that you're seeing this morning, we are told by this afternoon into tonight, it is going to be decreasing. So that's good news. All right, we're going to keep things moving this morning and get into some motivation to get your day started. And that means it's time for Eye Opener. Our Eye Opener is taken from dailyom.com, and it goes like this. Each stage we go through has its time of fulfillment and recession, as do all living things. Flowers and leaves both begin their lives as organisms so tiny we cannot see them with the naked eye. With time, they become visible, curled in upon themselves, colorful buds slowly softening and releasing. With the proper warmth and moisture, they unfold little by little, revealing with each degree of opening a new color, shape, or dimension. Sometimes buds open seemingly all at once, unfolding the full majesty of their potential, of what looks to the human eye like courage, openness, and generosity. Each stage we go through has its time of fulfillment and recession, as do all living things. Every moment of every stage has its own particular beauty, and we can appreciate that even as most of us tend to love the spectacular moment of full blossoming most of all. When we feel the wisdom contained in the budding, blossoming, and dissolution of a simple flower, we begin to feel it everywhere, in each moment that comes and goes, in each sunrise and sunset, in every hello and goodbye, as the very essence of the pulsating ebb and flow of existence.
This eye-opener figuratively speaks to spring, in the sense that there's the blossoming of new life, so to speak. And it all has to do with the final sentence of the eye-opener itself, where it speaks to the ebb and flow of existence, right? There are times when we are at our best, and that radiates among the people who are around us. They are the ones who kind of bask in that sunshine that is being emitted. And there are also times when we find ourselves withdrawing. We find ourselves, you know, kind of introverted, for want of a better description. But it all speaks to the ebb and the flow of things we do in life and the accomplishments we make and how we feel about ourselves, right? But the idea for me, to see the bud begin to blossom and come to life with all the colors and everything, to me, metaphorically speaks to that kind of achievement where you start small and then you become this person that you know everyone looks up to. You put out a certain energy, people gravitate towards it and what have you. And then there's also that time when you kind of, you know, pull back and kind of go hermit mode, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, and I saw it more from the side, from the pace that we all have. You know, those flowers that just suddenly you wake up one morning, nothing was on the tree, and there it is, just standing out in all its majesty. And others that you check on every day to see as it unfolds. So for me, the message that really resonated was the idea of pace, and recognizing that your pace, for you to be able to properly flower or to reach your full potential will be different from others. And it doesn't mean that the work isn't ongoing. So I think that's such a great way to look at it. But you know, this is one of the common things that is used, the idea of using seasons to show how, and especially looking at the cycle of plants and flowers as a part of what we see in life. You know, there are times where you're building momentum to be able to get going on something, and then there's a time where you wind down, and then you go into your rest mode, very similar to what we see in natural life and so much in our life as well. And it's just, it's a great reminder. So now as we see all these flowers start to erupt everywhere, you know, the Mayflower is out, even though it's March. And all the others are coming out. Allergy sufferers do know that it's happening, even if you don't see it. But you recognize that this is the cycle that we all have in us, just in different things that we do.
It's a beautiful eye-opener, I must say.
Right. Okay. So let's get moving into the Eye on the News. Of course, this is our opportunity to find out about the stories from the weekend and what we're looking forward to in the week ahead.
So, first of all, we want to begin by acknowledging the passing of Sharon Matola. For those of you guys who are in conservation, you're into wildlife preservation and what have you, you would know or remember who she is. She was a founder of the Belize Zoo, and she was very instrumental in, you know, that whole aspect of ecology and dealing with plants and wildlife. She passed away over the weekend. Her death has also been acknowledged through sympathies being given by Prime Minister John Briceño as well. So we just wanted to, you know, remember Sharon Matola. we have something that we want to share, Marlene, in terms of video, or there
Look
she
at
is.
those images there.
Yes.
Yeah, I would hate to simply say she's passed. I think one of the things that people know Sharon for, and we've all been exposed to through our work in the media and by extension the public. You know, Sharon just was such a unique soul and so passionate about the work that she did there at the zoo. She was really like the driving force, of course the founder as well, but ensuring that while you would have animals in captivity, it would be with a purpose of ensuring that they would have as much of their natural habitat. Anybody who's been to another zoo in another country and then comes back home realizes that we just have such a unique system in place for such a small country as well. She started her the Jaguar rehabilitation program, something she was very passionate about as well, and she has always maintained the passion that she has for animals and for the work that she did there at the zoo. Anytime you called on her to speak about it, she was there to be able to share all that she's learned through her experience.
For some of us, our memories go back to April the tapir. It's almost as if though she was synonymous with April, because every time you go to the Belize Zoo, you know, you would get that tour, and then you'll get the information that you need to know about all the animals, but more so the tapir and the jaguars. Those are her things, as far as I could recall. You know, so again, we just want to, you know, acknowledge that she has, you know, passed on, and so we'll have something proper later on in the newscast. The other thing that I wanted to touch on this morning, Marlene, we're nearing our 1-year anniversary of COVID-19 and the impact that has had on our Belizean society. We're talking socioeconomic, we're talking physical, we're talking everything as far as the pandemic situation is concerned. And I just wanted to take the opportunity to plug quickly that we are in fact working on a News 5 special in which we will be focusing on the year that has been, the COVID year. And I know that there is optimism, there's the light at the end of the proverbial tunnel insofar as persons now receiving their vaccines and the encouragement for the public to get vaccinated. But we're looking at a situation where over the past 12 months, we've begun from entering the unknown, because a year ago around this time, little was known about the pandemic. Well, little was known about COVID-19.
Yes, it was still the novel coronavirus.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so a lot has happened since then in terms of medical breakthroughs and what have you. But while that is for the scientists and the doctors, we're focusing on what has changed in our lives over the past 12 months, right? I'll give you a quick example, Marlene. I personally had a hard time adapting to the idea of a new normal. That was my biggest challenge most of last year. How do you tell me that the things that I used to be able to do in the normal course are now the things that I can no longer do, like visiting my friends and family, like you know, going to a basketball game, or you know, simple things that we would have ordinarily taken for granted as, you know, things that we just do.
Yeah, you know, actually tomorrow is going to be 1 year since we had detected and we had reported the first case in Belize. And it's interesting because we had a conversation last week where some of the researchers at the lab who were working along with Baylor College said that early samples from March show that we had already had cases of COVID-19 in the country before the actual first detected case. But we were all on edge. Actually, school closed on the 20th. That was the final day that children were in the classroom. It's amazing to think that it's been a year that they've been at home, adapting, them, parents and teachers, adapting to a new way of learning. And they have been, you know, doing their distance papers, staying away from their friends. They haven't had a break time to play with other kids in so long. But the country was already on edge. The pandemic had pretty much, everyone around us had started to to face the brunt of the first wave, and we were very late. So I think it was just a constant state of apprehension as to when it was going to happen. We knew it was probable that it was going to be from an imported case, and that's essentially what happened. But when we look back and you think of how much the crash in tourism, for example, happened long before
it preceded the
actual first case.
Yeah.
We see reports where people were already talking about 25% cancellation, 35% until, you know, finally it just became that point where people were not going to travel anymore.
Yeah.
So we started to see that early. Schools closed early. And then I do remember that day very clearly. Of course, we got the reports that there was going to be a press conference. We knew that something was happening. The Ask the Expert segment had already started, so people were just kind of waiting to hear the news itself.
The Wash Your Hand campaign as well. Now,
How much
Marlene,
did we learn to wash our hands?
Yeah. One of the key things that I recall from last year was entering into the first state of emergency and the imposition of the curfew. While yes, we had very few cases in the onset, the fact that, you know, the entire country went into a state of lockdown. Now, in retrospect, one can sit back and say, well, perhaps certain things could have been done differently in terms of the way this was all addressed, right? But it's a year later.
And we get to look back.
And we get to look back at all the different happenings, so to speak.
And we get to look back at a time where a vaccine is being rolled out. I mean, it's almost like being able to talk about a painful experience, but now from a place with a bit more comfort. So this is, I mean, it's something we're looking forward to. So the News 5 special report, the 1 year later, is going to come up this week on Thursday night at 8 p.m. So you can actually catch it right after the newscast. And we are looking forward to it. I think we're going to be fascinated as to how much, and I've been saying that to friends and family for a while. It's every time we get bogged down by how exhausting it is to be living in a pandemic, I keep on reminding them that we are living through the most historic moment of all of our lifetimes. You know, the only near similar experience was in 1918, over a century ago.
We weren't even conceived, we were nowhere in the picture.
We'll be telling the story to future generations. The youngest of children will be telling, maybe they'll remember that they had to do school on computer for the first time then, but they will be telling this story for generations to come. And so we'll just be looking back at the history of this time in our lives.
If I can use this opportunity to sort of, you know, speak on putting together this special report. First of all, there's a mountain of coverage that has been given to COVID-19 since the very beginning. And going through all of the reports that we have, you know, put forward to our public, when you look at what all has happened, Marlene, you mentioned the Ask the Experts earlier. That became one of the key features of the entire pandemic coverage. You're talking about the National Oversight Committee with the past administration and how that was a bipartisan effort to try to bring everybody on onto the battleground, so to speak, to fight COVID-19. You're looking at all of these things that happened last year, including the fact that it was an election year as well, right? And so going through all of these files and going through, you know, everything to put this together, I'm thinking in my mind, I'm saying, wow, all of this in 12 years. If you look
12 months.
Sorry, 12 months, my apology. If you look at what would be our traditional year in review, right, in December, yes, there's also a mountain of stories that we've covered over the course of that particular year. But with this being centralized on COVID-19 and looking at everything that has come about because of this pandemic, all the adjustments that we've had to make, you know, the way how society has been sort of forced to reshape itself, you know, and the innovation of the Belizean people is another thing. All of that within the span of 12 months, Marlene.
Yeah, so much has changed. So You do want to look out for that. That's going to be on Thursday night at 8 p.m. As we have our News 5 special report, COVID-19 1 year later. And of course, as you noted earlier, it is such an interesting time to be looking back at the beginning of when we started to battle the pandemic here, because at this point, as we said earlier, there is the ongoing rolling out of the vaccination program. I know the Ministry of Health said at the end of last week that about 15,000 people had been vaccinated. So that is definitely making progress. They've moved into phase 2 of the rollout.
It's quite an interesting experience to think of it. On Friday, I was at the SJC Gymnasium.
There we have our Channel 5, a part of our Channel 5 team getting their vaccination there.
This was in fact on Friday at the SJC Gymnasium, right? So coming back to that, so we were there to cover the vaccination of the leader of the opposition, but in observing what was taking place, and you see all these elderly people, men and women, filing in and receiving their injections, I think in the context of this being 1 year later, we never thought, not in a million years, that this would be happening and this is where we are. I think for the most part, it was all doom and gloom and we did not know what was going to come next. To see that we've come this far in terms of finding a vaccine for this dreaded disease is an achievement in and of itself.
It is such an emotional moment, and I do want to talk a bit about getting the first dose of the vaccine. And I said publicly on the show, I have, you know, I do hope that people, when their turn comes around, they make the decision to take this vaccination. It is so important that we keep on protecting ourselves, but also we protect our loved ones in the process. We have lost so many people to this disease, and here is the turning point where we can change that. The media, in case people are asking, because I know that they probably see some young faces, but the media is included as a part of frontline workers. You guys are out, we are out talking to people as much as possible. And so we were included along with teachers and the police group. I took mine on Friday because I said, well, you know, if I have any side effects from vaccinations, as is typical, I would have the weekend. And I gotta say, the only thing I have is like sore injection site. That's all I have. I didn't get any fever, any chills, anything. You don't even feel it. The nurse that worked with me went through thoroughly all the details of the vaccination before she administered it. You do have to wait 15 minutes after to ensure there's no reaction to the vaccination as well. But I'm really happy. I know some people do get fever. Some people do get some of the other side effects. You have children. You know, when they get their vaccination, they're like fluish for a little bit of time after.
A little crabby as well.
Yeah, as their immune system responds, because that's what the vaccine does. So, you know, we're happy for that. And we have been scheduled for a second dose in 12 weeks' time. So we do want to let people know. I know the people who were coordinating the rollout on Friday asked that people please bring an ID. So if you're a teacher, you have to bring something that identifies you as a teacher, a media worker the same, the police as well, so that they can know that they're giving out the vaccine to the scheduled group at that time.
So those are some of the developments.
There's Dwayne Moody.
There goes our colleague.
He's gotten his first dose.
There is.
On his birthday too, right?
All right, so those are some of the stories that we've been working on, some of the things that you can look forward to as well. And once again, these stories and more you'll catch at 6 o'clock on News 5 Live. You can also stream our content from our Facebook page as well. So that does it for RNO News this morning.
Now we got to get moving into our show for today, and we are going to be having our first conversation with adjunct lecturer at Gillen University in Economics, Carlos Magana. It is nearing the end of the financial year. Initially, this was the week that the budget should have been presented. Of course, the biggest issue that is ongoing is looking at the negotiations between the unions and government. in what is going to happen with the wage cut and increment freeze. But while that conversation continues, and we'll keep bringing you more information, we have to talk about the budget. What are some of the things that we need to be looking at when that budget presentation is made? How do we realistically hear commitments made and allocations made given the state of our economy? So we're going to have a lecturer come in and school us in helping us understand more.
And then our second and final segment is a discussion with the Labor Department, where they have recently launched the Employment Services System. So we're going to be speaking with the Labor Commissioner, and she's going to tell us all we need to know about this particular system and what it means for workers.
All right, and then we are going to close off for today with a look back at some of the work that Sharon Matola did there at the Belize Zoo, and we'll be looking at her Jaguar rehabilitation program, so you can look out for that as well. We're going to go ahead now and take a break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about the budget, so please stay tuned.
Hello? Okay, sure, I'll be there. Hello?
Hi, Mommy. When are you coming home? I really miss you.
Hearing the voice of our loved ones can always lift our spirits and make us feel whole again. With Smart's twice as nice promotion, prepaid customers who make 5 minutes worth of national calls on Sundays can enjoy 50% off, top double on all national calls for the rest of the day. Call your loved ones and enjoy half off all day long. Smart, bringing people together.
As one of the largest cable and internet providers in Belize, CBC strives to provide our customers with the highest standards of quality, value, and service in all aspects of cable TV and internet. Monitoring our systems closely, our technicians combine creative planning and state-of-the-art technology with years of experience and training to develop and provide the most reliable and advanced cable and internet service to exceed your expectations. For CBC and our team of talented engineers, technicians, and customer service representatives, delivering less than the very best is never an option.
In these challenging times, the one thing that is certain is that the Belize Bank Limited is here for you. There is nothing more important than your health and safety, and we continue to make every effort to make banking safer for you. Our staff is working around the clock to make sure you can do your banking conveniently 24/7 using our mobile banking app and online banking and keeping ATMs up and running. We value your relationship with us and are here to provide the support you need. First responders are also out there 24/7. Thank you, healthcare workers, security forces, firefighters, caregivers. You are all appreciated. Stay safe. We will get through this together. The Belize Bank, our country, your bank.
Over 3 decades ago, a Belizean company with roots in Toledo realized that Belizeans were paying far too much for life-saving oxygen. This concerned them greatly, and they decided to do something about it. Although Fabregas Belize Limited was born decades ago, that founding spirit of service to the Belizean people has not only been retained, but cemented into the fabric of how the company does business. Right before the worldwide pandemic began, Fabregas Belize Limited invested significant resources in improved storage and logistics for our country's life-saving oxygen. At the company's own expense, COVID-19 units in 2 of the 4 regions of the country received state-of-the-art specialized oxygen distribution infrastructure for in-hospital and direct-to-bedside oxygen provision. Today, our nation's premier tertiary referral hospital, the Carl Huchner Memorial Hospital in Belize City, is equipped with an ample, modern and suitable oxygen distribution system for its most pressing needs, even at the height of hospitalization due to the COVID-19. This investment in Belize's preparedness has ensured that throughout 2020 and now in 2021, Belize has backup reserves of approximately 300% more than the national need for life-saving medical oxygen. This important investment in infrastructure and technology is backed by a proud all-Belizean management and staff. Continuous training and adherence to international standards means that Fabregas stands ready to deliver the best products and service to its customers. So regardless of how Fabregas serves our nation, whether it's through providing the gases, technology and products that build Belize, or whether we serve by always ensuring that you, your loved ones and every Belizean home or in a hospital always has access to life-saving oxygen, Fabregas has got your back. And together, we look forward to rebuilding this nation in a post-pandemic world. Fabregas Belize Limited. We got your back.
Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
And welcome back. Our first conversation this morning, as Marlene mentioned prior to the commercial break, is with an adjunct lecturer at Galen University. We're joined this morning by Carlos Magana, and he's going to talk to us about the budget and the putting together of the budget for the upcoming fiscal year. Good morning, Mr. Magana.
Good morning, Isani, and good morning, Marlene. I am privileged to be with you this morning and in your program.
So there's a lot we'll get into in terms of the budget and the preparation of the financial plan, but we want to begin first of all with your take on the recent review put forward by the International Monetary Fund. I think perhaps that lays the groundwork for the discussion that we're going to have in terms of the upcoming budget. Let's begin there, Mr. Magana.
Okay, thanks. Before I would start the discussion there, I want to read 2 statements.
Sure.
One from the Whalers Law and one from a Christian philosopher. The Whalers Law says, nothing is impossible for the man who doesn't have to do it himself. And from the Christian philosopher, Mr. Knight, he says, it's impossible to arrive at your destination unless you know where you are going. Those thoughts helps us to set the stage for us to be able to understand where we are going, what is expected. And the first issue that we need to understand is that we have a review of the economic condition of Belize that is done on a yearly basis, or every 6 months, depending. And we have recently been able to read or to be able to understand what has been stated by this review commission. And the review commission has really given us an interesting background on the condition that our economy is at present. And based on that condition then, it sets a stage on what can be or what would be the expectations that we Belizeans are looking forward to with a new administration and a new fiscal year. They start the review of the budget saying certain things that are very interesting, and what they have stated is, and the first thing that they said is that the pandemic, the first thing they look forward or state is what we have suffered for the past year. We in Belize and throughout the world. And that is the impact that COVID had in our own small developing economy. And it had a huge impact in one of our most vulnerable and the largest economic activity that we have, which is the tourism sector. And they said that 72% of that sector was affected. Now, can you imagine your house being affected by 72% of its income in that section? Yeah. So it brings and has a huge impact. And that reduced the foreign exchange earning to about 40% of our GDP. As a result, in general, the economy contracted by 14.1%. Now, that is a huge reduction in our economy. 14.1% is speaking about a huge amount of money. Yeah. When our GDP is almost to be $2 billion, as it was in 2019, it was 1.8. This year, it went down to 1.6 billion US dollars. So automatically, we see that huge impact, and that has that effect on what we are seeing and what we are experiencing today. Now, that also, because of that, we see that there is a contraction, and that's a key word here, that our economy has contracted, or has had that contraction. What does the word contraction means, speaking from a economic point of view? Who is affected? Now, when there is a contraction in our economy, it means to say then that the national output, your economic activity, what you do on a daily basis, what the different sectors of the economy do on a daily basis is reduced. And once that is reduced, the whole economic activity is being also reduced. And that is by different effects. We had the pandemic as being the major cause of that effect. But apart from that, we had already seen that our national economy had been suffering certain situations, and the contraction is there is a reduction in the GDP because there is a decrease or a drop in your personal income. Now, Marlene and Isani, when you have a reduction or a decrease in your personal income, that means to say that automatically you will be purchasing or consuming less.
Yeah.
And if we have a lower consumption, then it trickles down to lower production or a decrease in production. So one economic indicator impacts another economic indicator.
So it's sort of like a domino effect. It's sort of like a domino effect.
In economics we call it a trickling down effect. Okay, it trickles down in the economy, and that is right what you have said, so that we can understand it for the general public. It's like a domino effect. If you remember that your income or whatever you purchase is your expenditure, but becomes somebody else's income. And if that is being reduced, then as it trickles down, there is less and less availability of purchasing capacity. And that's why we have that trickling down effect. And that is what happened. And if there is less industrial production, automatically the retail sales will be going down. So we clearly see that effect that happened. We all mentioned that is due to the pandemic, but to reach to that condition, it's something that had happened prior to. It's not simply a pandemic effect. In economics, we cannot say it's only a pandemic effect yet. The pandemic had its huge impact. We will not ever try to remove that from the shelf. No, it is there. Nonetheless,
and I think
yes,
that's a key point to hone in on, and it's one that one of the questions that I posed to the Minister of State, Christopher Coy, last week. Because what the IMF, and the IMF is only one report. It's also, you know, looking at, it's kind of forecasting, but we don't know what this administration is going to roll out in terms of economic recovery. But, you know, when you talk about not returning to pre-pandemic figures, which means what we were doing in 2019 until 2025, one of the things that's very essential in that conversation is that, or in that explanation, is that pre-pandemic, we were already in a recession. So if you're saying 5 years from now, we're going to be at the point of a recession, it still is very grim news.
Yes, it is. And this is where it is very critical for the new administration to really set its view, its strategy, its rebounding economic policy very strategically. It cannot be done only on political desires, no. It has to be done on the reality that we have at present. We have to set our foot on the ground. Yeah. We cannot try to run when we only can walk at this point. And the economic condition that we are right now, the picture that is painted by the IMF report is not one that helps us to say that Belize is in a very good position. No, it is not. And that they do mention several things, and in their fiscal review that they do for us, they also mention that we need to be very careful, very, very, very careful, because and I can quote what they said: fiscal policy needs to strike a balance between supporting those affected and enhancing a large public debt reduction over the midterm. So if that is going to be a reality, no, they are the ones who are telling us what is our sickness. And maybe I can use an illustration here. If you go to the doctor and the doctor tells you have a cancer, I don't think you're going to fight back with the doctor. You're going to try to work with him to see in which best manner you can remove yourself or be able to overcome that illness. Now, our illness here in Belize is a huge debt. That is our illness. So at this point, if you won't fight back with those who are telling you you have an illness. What you need to do is work with those who are telling you that there is an illness to cure it. Because if not, at the end of the day, we're all going to suffer that situation. So
I'm glad you
that balance.
I'm glad you've mentioned
yes, proceed.
The diagnosis, so to speak, that in our case, our illness is a significant national debt that has, impacted everyone at all strata in society. My question is, or an observation here, is that notwithstanding the diagnosis and the prescriptions that come about as a result of that diagnosis, as a country, our government still sort of does its own thing, so to speak. Because when we talk IMF and IMF reports and subsequent prescriptions, you hear about a homegrown economic recovery plan. You hear in the previous administration, no, we're not going to follow what the IMF has put forward. We're going to do our own thing to see if we can recover the economy on our own. Why do we not, for whatever reason, look to what is being put forward as something that we would adopt in terms of turning things around?
Isani, it's very difficult. It's very difficult as an administration. Well, I am not part of the administration. I'm simply a lecturer. I'm an economist.
Yeah.
And I look at it from that perspective, from an economist perspective.
That's what I'm getting at. Your perspective from that of an economist.
Okay, is what the IMF has set forth is because it's coming from an economic analysis of the situation. When these recommendations are being given, and by the way, I must say, as we read and as we analyze the report, it's nothing that is beautiful. Their recommendations are very strong, and they highlight several occasions during the review, and this is something I wanted to discuss later, but I can mention it now, that we need to be very careful, because if we are not careful in adhering to those recommendations, we can lose our currency peg.
Mm-hmm.
And what does that mean? And this is where the administration comes in very strong, and the administration would say, we are not going to permit that to happen. And that is true. It's going to be chaotic if that would happen during any administration. But the reality is that we are being told, you either adhere or we can suffer. And that is what we need to be very cautious.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the past administration didn't really took many of the recommendations into account. Where we are today. Tell me where we are today.
So this is...
Yes, continue, Marlene.
And I was going to say, because, and I guess that's kind of the question that Isani is asking, that when we hear of these reports, and I really appreciate you being able to kind of break it down so we understand the gravity of what is being reported by the IMF. We hear of them, we often report them in the media, a few people do read and digest them, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a prescription, well, it doesn't mean it's a course of action that will be taken by any administration. They do have a choice. And I think that the picture has always been painted that reports like these aren't very sensitive, or recommendations made in reports like these aren't very sensitive to the realities of the human beings involved. When you talk of cutting down public debt, if it does include, or increasing taxes, these are some of the areas where it becomes very difficult politically to be able to execute.
And that is correct. And because if that would happen during the course of any administration, the public at large will not understand that what we are suffering or being recommended, it's because we have been lacking for years to follow what is being recommended. And if we still continue not adhering to these recommendations, and you have stated it correctly, they are recommendations. We as a country can decide to adhere to the recommendations. We can decide not to. We can look at them, we can sit down, we can develop strategies based on the recommendation, and we can be able to rebound. And we might not need to go through that specific recommendation. We can find a solution that runs parallel, so that the medicine, for example, there's some medicines that the doctor gives that are sour, bitter. Okay? But you can find in the market, and in the pharmaceutical market, another medicine that you can drink that has the same effect, but it's a little less bitter. So this is what I want to say, that once the recommendation is given, the national executive now sits down, looks at it, studies it objectively, analyzes it, looking at their own expectations and what they want to do as an administration, for the next 5 years. So that is what they will be working with now, looking at that.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, yes.
So moving, and I appreciate what you have outlined with the IMF report, but let's bring it home. You know, we are approaching the end of the financial year, and there is a very legitimate challenge on the table. The IMF has said, but that you know, about reducing about reducing the amount of expenditure, how much government is spending on salaries. But this is something that has been discussed long before, even with the previous administration, and it was something that we knew had to be addressed at this point in time. And there's a stalemate. There's a current recommendation by government. There is opposition to that recommendation, and that has to be sorted through. But the budget eventually has to be read. And I want you to talk to me from an economist point of view. What are some of the areas that you are going to be focusing on when you hear the budget presentation when it's made?
Okay. What would be some of the points? What I am expecting is that there has to be some reduction on the wage bill. That has to happen. As fiscal action, the government has to reduce its expenditure at all levels. At all levels. We're not going to say that it is going to happen at this level or at the other level. No. It has to happen at all levels, across the board. It's going to save millions of dollars. But in doing that, what are you going to do with that amount of money that in principle is going to be saved? Is it really going to be saved? Do we really have that money at hand? Will we really have that availability to use that money? Or it's simply a figure value that we are reducing? Do we have does the government have available that liquidity that is going to be saved? Okay.
Well, that's an excellent question. If I could jump in quickly here. While we're saying, okay, we need to realize X amount of millions of dollars in savings over the next 3 years, then what would be the purpose of those monies? Once we've accrued the $240 million in this case, what do we then do? Where do we invest it? Where does it come from? As you've mentioned, do we have it in liquid form? How does that come about? Can you explain that to us?
Okay. Whenever the government would say that there is that we are getting or that we are being able to save a certain amount of money, it is in record. And the government collects revenues, government makes loans to be able to balance off its budget. So if they are collecting revenues and making loans to balance off that, and they are able to get the amount or collect the amount of expected income for the government, then the money is going to be there. Now, how is it going to be used? Some of my recommendations here is, some is being done presently. We see that there is a high movement to the agricultural sector. We as an economy, we are an agriculture-focused economy together with tourism. Those are the two main pillars that we have. And we also need to see, and I am also expecting in the budget to see, if there are going to be new industries. Because that is what will definitely bring employment, and employment is going to bring in economic activity, and then it's going to have a multiplier effect in the economy and the rebounding and such. But it has to be with increasing or bringing in new industries. If I would ask a question, and comes to the mind, if we look at the past 15 years, what new industries have we had in our economy? Not expansion of present industries, no. New industries. It's very minimal.
Yeah.
Very minimal.
That's a key point, and I think I want to pick up on that one because that's a part of the innovation that is necessary for any kind of economic rebound. So what we'll do right now, Carlos, is take a very quick break, and when we come back, we'll pick up right on that point. So please stay with us, and for viewers at home, stay tuned.
Working off-site doesn't mean you have to be off your game. Studies have shown that simply adding a keyboard and mouse to your laptop increases productivity by 26%. Add a monitor, and you'll be 35% more productive. At Fulltech Systems, we have what you need to enhance your remote work or e-learning experience. With devices such as headsets, video conferencing monitors, webcams, keyboards, mice, docking stations, all with the brands you trust. Keep connected with collaboration tools like Microsoft 365 Suite and Kaspersky and perform efficiently no matter where you are. Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
Caused the intense flooding overnight in the western and southern parts of the country.
Yeah?
Do we need to renew the insurance policy?
The insurance policy?
Were impassable.
Oh, let me check.
Renew your policies, file a claim, and even send us a message using RFNG online.
Now we're good. It says we're covered.
Okay, great.
It pays to get it right with RFNG Insurance, a Road Group company.
If we are only as strong as our families, businesses, institutions, and the communities that surround us, then by giving businesses the power to grow, entrepreneurs the ability to expand, and by giving our families the right to own something, the Belize Bank gives you the power to build a nation, our nation. We are stronger together. The Belize Bank, our country, your bank.
And welcome back. We're continuing our conversation this morning with an adjunct lecturer. He's an economist, Carlos Magana, and he's talking to us about the budget. Now, Mr. Magana, we were talking prior to the commercial break about new industries and the viability of bringing on board additional sectors to the economy. Let's continue there.
Okay, yes. As I was mentioning, I do believe in my vision that one of the things that we definitely need to do is to bring in those new industries, because that is what will factor in new employment. I do believe that expanding present industries is fine. It's great. It's good work. But when you start to bring in new industries, you start to use the capacity of the Belizean population. Mm-hmm. There are so many individuals who have different types of skills and knowledge acquired at home and abroad. And many of these skills, capacity, they're not being used in our economy. And if they're not being used, then it's a waste of human resource. And this is where the government, and this is where the national executive needs to look at, need to sit down and analyze what are the new industries that we need to bring in so that we can be able to start moving with new vision our economy. That's the only way that it will start rebounding.
That's such a critical point. You know, when we look at the tourism industry and how much we relied on that particular sector for bringing in the majority of the revenue in the country, and when that collapsed, and we were commenting earlier, before Belize detected its first case, we very clearly saw the fallout, the massive unemployment that took place, the strain and scramble for foreign exchange. And I mean, do you think that this is a critical lesson, a very hard lesson that we have learned through this pandemic, that a sole reliance on a tourism-based economy is a very difficult thing to maintain?
Any economy that relies only on one or two of its sectors to sustain it becomes vulnerable. And that vulnerability that happens in the economy, we have learned the lesson. And I am sure that now we as Belizeans definitely are going to find other, we're going to look at other sectors in the economy. And we're going to start to balance off that we do not only depend on one, because tourism, if we saw, gives about 45% of our gross domestic product. Now, that is too high. We saw the impact that it had. Agriculture, if we focus in agriculture, agriculture has so many options. There are so many ways that we can expand in agriculture. There is, and as an economist, I know that this is a point of debate anytime it comes, and that is, should we do offshore drilling or not? Now, when you find yourself that your house is breaking down, you're going to find and you're going to do what is necessary and what needs to be done. Now, I have my position on that. I see the pros, I see the cons, but if your economy starts to call, then you need to expand. For example,
even things like the cannabis industry that has been on the table for a while, and I know that comes with its own challenges as well, but what I'm hearing from you, it's very similar to what the Minister of State said. He said there's some tough decisions to be made, I assume that also means unpopular in some cases, because what you're saying is that if we know that tourism is going to eventually come back, we have such a beautiful product, there's no way people won't want to come. Agriculture has been our base, and we've heard the Prime Minister speak of moving towards value-added products as well. But what else will we then introduce as an additional source of income for the country that allows us to balance off where we've been relying, what we've been relying on for a while? So those are some of the tough decisions that we elect leaders who should be able to make decisions that's in the best interest of the overall country.
And I do believe that the leaders have been elected to do that, and I am sure they're going to do that in the best interest of our country. I have no doubt. The lesson learned is not an easy one. That lesson that we have learned because of not adhering to the public at large discussion, because of not adhering to international recommendations, because we want to do things on our own and not developing strategies that will help the economy to be sustainable in the long run, then that is why we are where we are today. That lesson has been learned. And I am sure that the national executive is going to do their best that we do not continue where we are. we ought to move forward.
Yeah.
And listening to several of the members of cabinet, how they are expressing themselves, I do believe that they will be looking forward to that. I was going to bring in the example of what happened in Costa Rica, what was done in Costa Rica through Intel. They are a country that we know today for technology.
Yes.
They produce a lot of technology. But did Costa Rica have that? No. They opened their doors to Intel so that Intel can come in and start developing at low cost because of the wage, what was being paid to them, the salaries is very low. So they use Costa Rica and they develop. And in so doing, they also work together with the Ministry of Education, and they established special education institutions so that they would have their own people being educated in what Intel needed. So at the end of the day, it was a benefit to the GDP because Intel brought in a lot of foreign exchange. And the added value to that, as you have mentioned, Marlene, what would be added value? The added value was education. Education, and you see that people throughout Central America and even from Belize travel to Costa Rica to be educated. So that was the added value that they had, taking that initiative of bringing in that new type of industry into their economy.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think that that's also, as we have this conversation, a part of it is to help people to recognize what we need to be paying attention to. And so while we do elect leaders to make these decisions, we keep them accountable by asking, where is the innovation? What are the new industries? How else are we going to earn money for the country, and how do we get there? Looking at the presentation itself, though, one of the things that I was sharing with you off camera is being able to see where we will be able to, how the budget will be divided in this upcoming presentation, in this upcoming financial year. I want to get your thoughts on that, because there are some ministries that are just simply essential. You know, we're in the middle of a health crisis. So what happens with Ministry of Health? We know we have had consistently a challenge with security issues when you talk about crime in particular areas. Let me ask from your perspective, when you look at the explanation of the budget and where the allocations are made, what do you pay attention to?
Okay, that's a very interesting question, Marlene, because administrations prepare budgets based on their present condition.
Yeah.
And based on the present condition that we see today, we cannot evade that crime is spiking in the last, what we are seeing now. Yeah. And will it continue? It's a social problem.
Yeah.
And if people do not have employment, and if the young people are not employed, they will find things to do. And mischief is one of the most things that they would be getting into. And if they are offered certain things, they're going to accept that offer, and they're going to commit crimes of all sorts. And so I am definitely seeing that there has to be a large allocation, but if permit me to say this, it needs to be strategically allocated.
What do you mean by that?
Okay, that is what I'm going to explain right now. It's not going to be simply a budget line. You need to work in that budget line with social partners, organizations, entrench with them strategies to see that these individuals will start to reduce crime. Crime reduction is not simply a state of words. No, words do not reduce crime. It is action. And to do that, it needs budget. it needs financing. You need to develop maybe other schools, develop institutions that are going to work, NGOs that are going to work with these individuals, and NGOs are not going to be simply brought up without any funding. It needs to have funding. And so to reduce crime, it's not simply an action of, I will do this. No, it needs financing. So the reduction, what I can think of, and maybe to give an idea, is the monies that are going to be saved from the wage bill, because it has to be done. I might be criticized at my bill, but I am an independent thinker. And as an economist, that has to happen. There's no two ways. It has to happen. The wage bill has to be reduced. As teachers, we have to be able to understand that it is an action. This is not unionism. This is not fighting. No, this is economics. We either cross it or we all drop into the river. The international community is not going to say, okay, unions, because no, they're not going to say that. They have already set the scenario of where we are. They have said, this is where you are. You're going to do this. Okay, so the monies that are going to be saved from that wage bill cut can be set to the agriculture sector, can be set to reduce crime, but creating organizations that can do so. And once these individuals reduce crime, then we're going to have a safer society. A safer society creates more consumption because we're going to have more people that will be willing and will find it beautiful to come back to that Belize that we had many years ago. And when people come to Belize, they consume, and that is what we need in our economy. We need consumption. If we do not consume, we will say, okay, fine, production is going to decrease. There's an argument, we're discussing with another colleague, he told me, but Carlos, if we do not consume, if our salary, then there's going to be a trickling down effect. That is the normal thinking. But Isani and Marlene want to say the following. Whatever is being saved in that line, the government is going to use it in other strategic structures, and therefore other people are going to receive that, and that money will still trickle or still have that multiplier effect in the economy. It's not that you're going to stop that in the economy. No, you're going to move it from one sector into the other. And it's going to build up in other individuals, others.
Let me digress for a quick second here. And we're talking economics still. We're looking at reducing the wage bill for teachers and public officers. Those of us in the private sector, we've already taken a pay cut from last year. So we're still sort of rebounding from that. When we look at the financial restrictions, if I may, and you look at the cost of living where everything else has gone up, if we're saying, look, we're going to take X amount of dollars out of the local economy and we're going to repurpose it for some other use elsewhere in the government expenditure or what have you, then less people are going to be able to afford some of the basic necessities that they would have, been able to purchase had they not been impacted by this particular withdrawal of monies. Can you speak to a scenario like that?
Okay, let me see if I got your scenario. We are reducing the income of the teacher. Okay, that reduction, 5-10%, whatever it is, and that will not be reduced from the economy. No, that money is still going to be in the economy, but channeled to other sectors. And once it's channeled to other sectors, the economic activity continues, but it continues in other where it can create, or if it is strategically, and this is why I use the term strategic.
Yes.
It needs to be strategically diverted to other individuals who are going to bring activity.
Yes, Carlos,
economic
I understand that. I'm saying nonetheless that their spending power will still be reduced. So whatever they could have afforded in the first instance, the fact that they're now taking a wage cut, they won't be able to afford some of these basic necessities. And we're saying that everything else has gone up. The standard and the cost of living has gone up considerably, and now we're looking at a situation where their wages are going to be reduced considerably as well, and so they won't be able to afford. And if you are saying to me, well, that affects productivity inevitably, then what becomes of that situation? That is my question.
Okay, and that is what I'm trying to let you understand. I have $10 in this hand.
Yeah.
I will only be able to use 8 now. The other $2, I'm going to put it in this hand. And I'm going to use it in this hand. So I still have the $10. I still have the $10. And this $2 that I have here now can help me to do other things, not only what I can do with this hand. I have another avenue so that I can then trickle economic activity. So what you are saying is one sector is going to be affected, but much others are going to be positively impacted if strategically, and I use the word again, strategically diverted to be invested so that the economy can rebound.
That's interesting. That's interesting, you know, and maybe, well, we're not at the point of the budget presentation and we're nearing the end of the financial year, but that would be, I think, a very valid question that the unions can ask. What will happen with the savings that are made from this wage cut? What will it go towards? Yeah. Because another element, and that's why I was asking you about, let's talk a bit about our budget allocations. We know education takes up the bulk of the budget. We know right now, if you're to look at priority areas, health is one of our priority. We also know that we have had issues with security, and so that's also been a continuous priority. But then at the same time, as we have clearly pointed out in the past half an hour to 40 minutes, it's a very grim state that we're in, and if you trickle that down to households where there's unemployment or reduced income, people are struggling. So what happens with human development and social assistance programs? So there are all these competing priorities from a very small pie to start with. So what are some of the key areas? And again, you need to be able to allow for space for more investment to take place and for expansion of new industries. So when we look at all these competing factors, it does make it quite a difficult job.
Yes. The national executive needs to look at foreign direct investment as one of the immediate situations that can help us. Now, there are the pros and there are the cons to a foreign direct investment. We know the impact that it has in the long term, but we also know the positive impact that it can have in the short term. So in preparing that budget allocation, it becomes very, very interesting that you only have a certain amount of money, but we need to see that that amount of money is used. Health cannot be set aside. No, we are in a still ongoing situation with COVID. The world is testing possible solutions, but we have not reached a point and say, okay, it is safe now. We're still in that position of testing. So we don't know what can happen. in the next 6 months with the pandemic. It can just turn into something worse, or it can be, we can start to see that around the world, it just started to decrease, and it's positive for the world economy and for our local economy, because we're a tourism-based industry.
Yeah.
Okay, so the where is it going to be allocated? Health has to receive it. A country's human resources is developed through education. So education has to be able to receive its necessary allocations. Agriculture needs to receive, because we know we don't want to keep only in the tourism factor. We need also to see that the agriculture sector receives the necessary input. The roads network is critical. Now, it's critical when it goes and it is being created or being expanded. Sorry, I shouldn't use the word created. It's expanded where we have production, where it can create more economic activity. I'm going to use this as an example. Yeah. We have a road that is going to Caracol. Fine. Aesthetics. Going to look good. How much will it produce in the national economy? To be seen in the future. We don't know. But if that money, which is very difficult to be taken back or not being used for that specific project, it's very difficult. And I think it's almost, to use the term, almost impossible. Yeah. Now, but if that would have been used from a different perspective, you could have still used it for the infrastructure or roads network, but where we see that there is productivity. For example, I am from the north, and being a former CEO of the Cane Farmers, I clearly know what is the struggle that they pass through their sugar roads. But with that amount of money that is being used to go to one tourist center, how much miles of the road network in the north could have been upgraded, paved, reduce the expenditure of the cane farmer, and in that way, that money that he would be able to save from buying parts and a lot of other things, he consumes much more fuel because he has to brakes and continue, brakes and continue. All that money that he would be saved, he would be able to set it then in the agriculture or producing more sugar cane. So these are just some of the examples of where you prioritize.
Well, and I appreciate what you're using as an example, and it has been one of the examples that we've heard of very often, whether or not when money is allocated for a particular project, whether it is in the best interest of the country overall and has more long-term impact. As you noted, and as we have heard clearly from this administration, it seems that there is pretty much a lock-in to completing that road. But using that as a lesson, when we hear the budget presentation coming up, these are the types of things very early on that we should say, hold on, is this going to be most beneficial to all Belizeans, and is this what we need at this time? As a university lecturer, my question is, do you get a sense that your students who are in the university and the people that you converse with on campus when there's a class, that there's a sense of interest and awareness about the people's role in paying attention and maintaining accountability?
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
There is. Students, I believe that the students today are looking forward and are much more open-minded to our national issues.
Fantastic.
Okay, they are much more open. there are many of my students who are from both political major parties followers, and some of them want to continue their political aspirations in both political major political parties. And they do bring in a lot of discussion, they do bring in a lot of questions when it comes to that. And I try to set the scenario or the picture that if we are suffering what we are today, we have learned that lesson. They are going to be the change factors of our little beliefs, of our jewel. They are going to be the ones to set a new beginning, if we can use that term. Because when they reach into office, they have seen through their life, their short life, what has been our suffering. Coming back now to where I would really want to say is, and the main discussion this morning is expectations of the budget.
Yeah.
The expectations.
Yeah.
If we looked at what has been the past budget's readings, if you would read it in detail, you wouldn't be able to identify rural development. You hear these, we're going to expand in electricity, we're going to do this, but where are the rural development programs? We as a country, we have the urban and the rural sectors. The rural sectors bring in economic activity into the urban area. The urban area is developed because there is a high urban activity. So if the rural area is really developed, if the rural area has a lot of economic activity, they are going to bring in those resources into the urban area. And they're going to purchase and take it back to the rural, and the development continues. So we need to see, and my expectation is to see in this coming budget, what is going to be the rural impact? What are going to be the projects, one by one listed, if any, that are going to impact the rural communities? They're the ones who, on a day-to-day, they are working.
Producers.
I have seen the Minister of Agriculture touring the country, and I am very happy to see that, because I think it's one of its kind. That we have not seen that in years, that the minister tours, looking, understanding, getting a first-hand information on what is needed. And I do believe, I can be wrong, but I do believe that in the budget we're going to see that rural impact discussion being presented there. I am looking forward to that. So this is where I would say, no, it's not that we want to leave the urban area one side. No, the urban area has its own challenges. And we have, is there sufficient space, the housing for the urban area? Looking specifically to Belize City, there are some areas that are totally being neglected. What is going to be how is it that this new administration in its budget, in the housing program, we're going to see that your budget is limited. How are you going to bring that about?
And you know what's going to be interesting, as I'm hearing you speak, I'm thinking of all the past criticisms of budgets of the past, where the details in the line items for allocations weren't also clear. So hopefully that will be something we see in this budget presentation as well, because as you outlined earlier, it's not just about saying this is your allocation, but being strategic about where it's going to go and with what purpose.
Yeah, and this is what we really want to determine here. that strategy. What are we going to do? The word strategy is not simply used in my comments as a word. No, I'm really expecting that ministries entrench, ministries combine, and you are the minister of X ministry, and I'm the minister of another ministry. So we come together, and I tell you, Marlene, Isani, what do you need? I'm not speaking that I am the finance man. No. I'm speaking that I am one of those ministers, and let us work together. Because if we do not intertwine, if we do not network, and every ministry wants to work independently, the strategy is not going to
And let me just jump in with that there, because Minister of State Honorable Koyi spoke of the fact that the government is simply too big. We have 17 cabinet members, and we have our Minister of States as well. What are your thoughts on that?
Reducing the ministries will, vision-wise, could be a possibility, so that there can be a better strategy working together. But nonetheless, when we have independent ministries as how they are right now, there is a more thinking capacity. I repeat that. There is a more thinking analytical capacity in different sectors of the economy. It has its pros, it has its cons. And I do believe that if the present administration is looking forward to seeing a total different working scenario, the number of ministries won't really impact the wage bill, because they're going to produce. And if they produce, and if they're able to work together, then it's going to bring in much more economic activity. Because, okay, let's set it like this. Isani has a little business, Marlene has a little business, I have a little business. But if only Isani has the 3 businesses, then it becomes more difficult. But if the 3 of us have these 3 small businesses, then we can work together, and there are going to be 3 different areas to expand that business, bringing it now into the national economy. Having an expansion in the ministries, it's a good idea, it's a good vision, because we have much more option of individuals thinking, right? Individuals thinking of how they can work together to rebound the economy.
But
yes,
while I hear your point in seeing the vision of having more persons dedicated to soul ministries, in the times that we are today, is it a financially smart decision?
Interesting question. Because the word that you use is smart. No. This sets a condition here. Reducing the number of ministries will reduce the wage bill under no circumstance. Right? We will not argue that point, reducing it. But at the same time, you're going to have individuals with higher responsibilities, with higher number of sub-committees to be able to
So
attend.
they'll be managing more people. And more responsibilities.
And if you do that, do you become more efficient?
Okay.
Or you become less efficient?
That's a fair argument.
Yeah, well.
Okay, so when we say that we want to bring in a new vision, we're also speaking about efficiency.
Yeah.
How efficient are we going to be? This, Marlene, is just a beginning of a discussion in so many other things that our present economy is. Yeah. Yes, you were going to say something.
I was going to say, you know, and I'm glad that you indulge us in discussing these topics. Very often people shy away from talking about the budget for some reason, but this is where we need to take the public discourse. My decision, the decisions that are made can be discussed, or the proposals that are put forward can be discussed, and we can have different opinions on them and try to bring some clarity as to why you feel a particular way versus someone else does. In moving forward, I do hope that we can have you after the presentation has been made so we can dissect it even further. But for now, we're looking at where to keep our focus and as you said very clearly, I think a bit ago, managing the expectations as well.
Yeah, so as I, if I may determine, or I shouldn't use the word determine, look forward to myself. I am anxious to see what is going to be in the budget presentation. As an economist, I want to see, because that is going to give me an idea of, will we have a rebound, or are we going to continue in a status quo? And if we continue in a status quo, we are definitely playing with our exchange peg.
Well,
we will be playing with it.
Carlos, you have already scripted for us the first question we will ask you when the budget has been presented, as to whether we're maintaining status quo or if we're moving towards a rebound. So I look forward to that conversation.
It's going to be my privilege. It's going to be my privilege. And it's up to you. In administration in Channel 5, I am more than willing to come in and discuss any economic topic that you all would be willing to.
We appreciate it. Thank you very much. And stay safe.
Thank you. With this, I would say, I hope Belize the best, and I hope that national executive would be really looking forward to that strategic action to rebound our economy. It's a network capacity from all ministries so that can happen.
All right. Thank you very much. And with that, we are going to go ahead and take a break.
And when we return, it's with the Labor Commissioner to talk about the new system that is being rolled out.
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.
Es un hecho que puedes obtener servicios ilimitados con Smart. ¿Cansado de que se corte la línea cuando más necesitas estar conectado? Es un hecho que cuando te suscribes al plan de Smart Plus, obtienes llamadas, textos y datos ilimitados. Y también es un hecho que te puedes suscribir con un grupo de 5 miembros al plan Smart Share y hasta 40 miembros al plan Smart Enterprise para llamadas, textos y datos ilimitados. Smart tiene los verdaderos planes ilimitados. Es un hecho. Sé Smart y vive de forma Smart.
Why, Tony?
Why, Keith, where you going, man?
I actually come see you because I need to buy a stack of them plastic plates and cups for my grocery shop because I run low.
Boy, I stopped importing that thing since April 15th, you know. And I just routed the last batch, must be about like 3 weeks back, you know.
Man, do I usually have that thing? What is going on?
Check this, right? Under the new law, we ban all single-use plastics, so that the cups, plates, forks, spoons, and knives, all of that. Since April 15th, can't import none of them. Starting January 15, 2021, you can't manufacture them. April 15, 2021, you can't sell them. And after July 14, 2021, if you get catch with any other thing, you will get fined.
Me never know this. I guess I have to make some changes then. I have to make the customers know that anything not available. Anyways, bro. Thanks, man.
No problem, man. Take care.
Hello, Belize. You may not be aware of the new travel requirements set in place by the Center of Disease Control and Prevention. Passengers traveling to the U.S. must present a negative COVID test or a documentation of having recovered from COVID-19 to travel to the U.S. In light of this, Maya, in partnership with Caring Hands Clinic, have established testing centers in all their municipal airports. Caring Hands Antigen Test Center is operational in San Pedro, Belize City, Dangrega, Placencia, and Hopkins. These testing facilities are staffed by licensed healthcare professionals, including doctors, registered nurses, and nurse practitioners. Testing is done using Abbott rapid test devices that are FDA approved and made in the USA. The service is safe, fast, affordable, and the close proximity of the centers makes them convenient. Walk-ins are welcomed, but appointments are encouraged. If you would like to make an appointment, please feel free to do so at Make your appointment, get tested, and in 15 minutes, you can get back to your vacation.
Welcome back. So the Labor Department recently launched an employment services system, and joining us now to discuss everything we need to know about the system and how it works is Labor Commissioner Anne-Marie Thompson. Good morning.
Good morning, and how are you?
I'm fine, and you?
I'm fine.
So tell us a little bit about this system. It's an employment services system. What does this entail, and who does it impact most?
Okay, so it's called Employment Services System. It's a web-based system, and it collects and processes unemployment information. In other words, we collect job seekers' information and we collect vacancies from companies. The system stores that information, matches it, and so we can recommend potential candidates to employers. I would like to call it a national depository. So we are encouraging all persons who have vacancies and all persons who are job hunting to contact the Labor Department and utilize this very easy to use online system.
So if, for instance, since we're in a pandemic situation and we're expecting that in the recovery process that employers will be looking for persons who are wanting of jobs and what have you. So they would be able to refer to the Labor Department and go through your list of potential candidates?
That's correct. They themselves, the employers, would need to log on, and from that they can have access to the system. We will also provide reports showing the credentials, the experience of candidates, and they can select who is the best fit.
Now let's talk about a bit about where this idea came from and why you decided to be kind of the assistance program in getting unemployed people connected with job opportunities.
Okay, the idea came about roughly about a year ago. We want to work with the stakeholders, employers, trade unions, to develop a national employment policy for the country. And before we do that, we engage the services of the World Bank. They are our partners. So in 2019, they did 2 studies for Belize. One of them was to look at active labor market programs, and the other one was a job diagnostic study. Both studies revealed that we need to have a centralized system, a system where employers can post vacancies and a system where persons can go to find jobs. So that is really the genesis of the situation. And it's very timely because with this pandemic, following social distancing protocols, it's online, so you don't need to interact with us. All you need to do is to get a password, log on, and you're good to go.
How challenging has this process been? I know it must not have been, you know, a smooth sailing in terms of conceptualizing, in terms of putting it together and reaching out to the various publics. How challenging was this for you?
One of the good things is that the Labor Department has very good relationships with our stakeholders. We could not have developed the system by ourselves. So we are very grateful to CETA. CETA actually developed this system, and they guided and assisted all the way. And we got inputs from the Belize Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We got input from the Statistical Institute of Belize. So we didn't do it by ourselves. And of course, our staff members were very involved, you know, testing and debugging. So it is a collective effort, collaboration.
Okay.
How different? I'm thinking because there are other organizations that undertake similar services. I think Fusion HR, when I think of you know, organizations or agencies that collect this kind of information and make it available to potential employers. How different is this from that kind of an undertaking? Is there a special or particular feature that allows the employment services to stand out?
This is very different because, as I mentioned, it will serve the entire country. National depository of information as it relates to vacancies and job seekers. So if you have 1 vacancy or 10 vacancies, you can register. If you are looking for a CEO or a supervisor or a driver or a partner, you can access the system. So it is very expansive, it is very secure, it is very user-friendly, and of course the information we collect, we will use it to produce reports to assist other agencies, other industries, other companies with planning for labor.
So how does the match work? Is it based, I mean, it's important that those who are offering the job vacancies will be able to detail skill sets, but that also means those who are applying or submitting their information on the system must be very detailed in their skill sets as well.
Right, so there are actually 2 starting points, or we could say 2 forms. So when the employer registers, he or she will input information including the position, the title of the job, the qualifications, the requirements, the experience, the location. All of that information is inputted by the employer in a very user-friendly form that takes less than 10 minutes.
Okay.
On the other hand, the employee, the prospective employee or the job searcher will input information in a separate form: name, address, schools attended, experience, and the system collects both sets of information. It matches it, and we make recommendations to the employer as to the candidates who are most suitable. The employer then contacts those persons and take the interview, the recruitment process forward. The good thing and what is different about this is that the information is validated by the Labor Department. So we won't just send a person to anyone. We take the information, we speak with both the employer and the prospective candidate to make sure that we are actually providing a service.
Is this only for persons who are unemployed, or if you're simply job seeking and you're currently employed somewhere else but you want to input your information into the system in the event that something else comes up? Can that be done?
Oh, definitely. You can register, but of course, the emphasis will be on those persons who really don't have a job.
Yeah.
But both if you are considering to change your job, certainly you can register on the system.
Will this help when we look at our current unemployment numbers, and we know a lot of them are from the tourism industry, from the service sector? Very often when you look at employment of vacancies that are posted, they're more for middle-level, high-level positions and not so much for entry-level. Is it really going to be a good match for the unemployment that we're seeing right now?
It will be. And earlier on, I mentioned that the World Bank assisted with 2 studies. And one of them was looking at active labor market programs.
Yeah.
Programs put out by the YMCA, VTech, the IT Vets, Belize Youth Apprenticeship Program, the Department of Youth Services. We work with these organizations to help some input in the curriculum they develop. Because one of the things we have noticed is that when it comes to labor, it should be demand driven. Right now, what came out of the studies was that persons are very qualified in the traditional areas, but there are certain skill sets that are missing, like social skills, digital skills, digital transformational skills. There are areas unexplored, like social services, IT. So based on our interactions with those agencies and those employers, we can work together to create or to suggest the focus of job training and job development be looked at for this current period and for the future. So yes, you notice that some of the jobs are for the higher level skills, some are medium level skills, but at the end of the day, it's all of those skills that are coming together to make our economy productive.
It really is. I mean, when you think about it, and as you outline what can be done with some of the data collected, it is really expanding what we have for a long time thought of the scope of work from the labor department and that particular ministry, where you were looking more at monitoring and regulating. You seem to be expanding to include, or this project is meant to help include, understanding the labor market and the deficiencies that may exist.
And that's correct, because everybody knows that the Labor Department provides labor administration services. We also provide employment services. We have a unit, the employment unit. It is staffed by 10 employment officers. And their responsibilities include registering employers and job seekers. It includes assisting with job preparation, giving advice how to behave in the workplace, especially for persons who are entering into the workforce for the first time. It assists in helping persons to write application letters and resumes. And that unit also assists with collecting employment data. So the system is going to be very information driven and very relevant as it relates to labor demand and labor supply. And just to follow up on this, one of the things that came out from that World Bank study is that our employees are more trained, knowledgeable, and experienced than before. And we are promoting this as a national depository. If there's a vacancy at your company, contact the Labor Department, go on the system first, because we have very qualified, very trained, very experienced Belizeans who just might be able to be the best fit for the job.
And what's the cost of the service?
And that's the beauty of it. There is no cost. You can be on the system even if you're on vacation on the beach. Even if you're up at 1 a.m. in the morning, you can access the system any day, anytime, anywhere at no cost. And think of the convenience, think of the reach. So the benefits are enormous. For companies with HR department, this will help you a lot.
Yeah. And what about, I mean, the accountability factor? Are you simply connecting and the company has to make its own, has to follow up on its own with pursuing these persons for interviews or for moving into another round? In other words, if I choose someone to hire from using this service and it doesn't quite work out, or they were not accurate with the skill sets that they said they have, I may come back to you at the labor department and say, well, you know, there wasn't enough due diligence done on this part.
And that is debatable. Remember, at the end of the day, we are providing a screening, but the employer will go further to interview those persons, sure that I have selected the best candidate. Yeah. So the employer has a critical role. We are not taking over that role. Yeah. What we are doing is to enhance the system from the beginning. And it would be very helpful to give feedback. You know, if an employer recruited a candidate and it did not work out, let us know, because maybe there is something to do to assist other candidates that may have the same problem.
That's true. And fine-tune the system as you move along. So you
and definitely, yes, definitely fine-tune the system.
So you launched last week. What's been the response so far?
Well, we launched on Thursday. I think so far, I think we have about 50 candidates who have registered. Some of those still need to provide information. But the word is that persons are beginning to know that there is a place, there is a marketplace, there is a space that is safe where you can upload, provide your information, and we will help you by liaising with employers to see if you can gain employment.
That's great. And can a job seeker go to the site and search through the options on their own?
Oh, no. What they will do is to register their information, and we will get back to them after we have forwarded their information to the employers.
Interesting. Now, let's talk about some of the other ways this department has been integrating technology and simplifying its processes.
Okay, well, actually, since the start of this year, this is the second computerization program we've had. In January, we computerized our temporary employment permit system, TEP system. This is a system that allows employers to recruit foreigners for jobs, to fill jobs if no Belizeans are to take those positions up. And we have computerized the entire process. Applications are done online, interviews are done online, notices are sent out via email and text messages. So we are leading the way because, as you know, the world of work is changing, the way we do our jobs, and technology is playing a greater role every day. So we need to be able to be on top of things also.
So the temporary electronic permit, temporary employment permit is now electronic.
It has been since January.
Yeah. Now, you know, I'd love to take the opportunity, since we have you here, to talk about just some of the labor issues in general. Last year, I know the Labor Department was inundated. They were inundated with questions and concerns of how employers could maneuver themselves through this time that was unprecedented for all of us. Tell me what it's like now, 1 year later.
Well, 1 year later, one of the things we set out to do is to ensure that there's always dialogue, there's always goodwill, and that there are always mutual benefits between both parties, the employers and the employees and their trade unions. And of course, we had a new phenomenon. It never happened before. As we went along, what we did, our one constant message was try to comply with the Labor Act. It trumps the Labor Act. So that was the message. Please try to adhere to the provisions of the Labor Act. And there are circumstances, for example, you may have a collective agreement. Again, try to sit around the table, negotiate, compromise, and go forward. For those organizations that did not have a collective agreement, we would bring them to the table online and speak with them and get a resolution. So we were actually out in the field online trying to bring persons together to see how best the jobs that are available could be performed, even though circumstances had changed. And if you notice, the industrial relations climate is pretty stable because parties have come together for the good of the country to give and take.
Okay.
All right. So that brings us to the conclusion of our conversation with you this morning. Is there anything else you want to mention?
Oh, yes. Again, I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to be here. And the message to the public, please contact the Labor Department to utilize our services. To get access to the system, it's employmentservices.mlgrd.gov.bz. And just in case you have forgotten that website, please feel free to contact us in Belmopan on telephone number 822-2297 or in Belize City 207-4023. This system is for everyone. We're asking all employers, all job seekers to utilize the system and let us be of service to you.
I just have one final question. Is it also offered in Spanish?
No, but we have many of our employees are bilingual.
Okay,
so there's always someone to help you.
Well, we do appreciate you telling us all about it. I know given the fact that a lot of people are without work at this time, the employment service is one that can definitely help them. So all they have to do is go online, register, and put their information in there, and hopefully they'll be able to access some employment as well. Thank you so much for joining us and telling us all about it.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
All right, so we go to our final commercial break, and when we return, we'll have a look back at some of the work that the late Sharon Matola has done with the Belize Zoo and, of course, the Jaguar Preservation Program. Stay tuned.
Our families, businesses, institutions, and the communities that surround us. Then by giving businesses the power to grow, entrepreneurs the ability to expand, and by giving our families the right to own something. The Belize Bank gives you the power to build a nation, our nation. Stronger together. The Belize Bank. Our country. Your bank.
Both men and women are almost equally infected by the virus that causes COVID-19. However, men seem to have a higher risk of severe infection and of dying from this disease. Research is showing that men are at a higher risk of dying from COVID-19 because men are still socializing and visiting friends. Men do not frequently wash hands with soap and water. A few men do not believe the situation is that serious. Men delay visiting a doctor even when they start to have symptoms like fever, dry cough, and tiredness. Men think wearing a face mask makes them look weak or uncool. and men tend to misuse alcohol, which has a negative effect on the immune and respiratory systems. Let's protect ourselves so that we can protect our families and loved ones. Use a face mask that covers nose, mouth, and chin. Wash your hands with soap and water for at least 40 seconds, or use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Practice physical distancing of at least 6 feet. Support men's health and help keep Belize safe. A message from the Pan American Health Organization, World Health Organization, the European Union, and the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Hello? Okay, sure, I'll be there.
Hi, Mommy. When are you coming home? I really miss you.
Hearing the voice of our loved ones can always lift our spirits and make us feel whole again. With Smart's Twice as Nice promotion, prepaid customers who make 5 minutes worth of national calls on Sundays can enjoy 50% off, top double on all national calls for the rest of the day. Call your loved ones and enjoy half off all day long. Smart, bringing people together.
And we are back. And before we close off our show for today, we do want to take a moment to to look back at the work of the late Sharon Matola. We had mentioned earlier in the show, and you've probably seen news reports, that Sharon Matola, the founder of the Belize Zoo, well-known lady in conservation and has been very visible in the work that she does with the Belize Zoo. She passed away on Sunday, and so we extend our sympathies to the entire conservation community, to her family, to her co-workers, her family there at the zoo, and we all collectively mourn the loss of this giant. And so before, we wanted to take some time to take a look at one of the last interviews that we had with her. This was a story done in 2019, talking about one of the projects that she was so passionate about, jaguar preservation.
Whoa.
This is Sylvia. She's a rehabilitated jaguar at the Belize Zoo. If she hadn't been rescued, it is very likely that Sylvia would have been killed. About a year and a half ago, she was killing dogs and scaring residents in a village. And so the Belize Zoo decided to enroll this problem jaguar in its rehabilitation program.
We received a call from a village who said, hey, this jaguar has killed and eaten 6 dogs in 1 week, so if you don't take her, we're going to have to kill her. We're proud of our program because we know if it's a problem jaguar, it has a problem, and she certainly did. She was missing a canine tooth. She was missing a canine tooth, Andrea, and she was missing bottom teeth, and she had intestinal issues. She's a runt. I mean, look, she looks young, but she's not so young. She's a runt. So her making it in the wild and hunting just was not on her menu. And as you can see, how close can you get to a jaguar like this, who actually has learned to like people?
Back in 2003, the Belize Zoo started a rehabilitation program that offers enrichment training for problem jaguars like Sylvia. To date, most of the 18 jaguars that are at the Belize Zoo were rescued as problem jaguars. The aim of the program is to reduce the number of jaguar killings by removing the jaguars from communities where they kill livestock and domestic animals. At the zoo, they go through a series of trainings to get them used to human interactions and to reduce their aggression before they're introduced to the public.
It has grown to be one of the most successful programs for jaguars anywhere. So we want to continue it. Today, we have saved 26 jaguars from being destroyed. And jaguars that contribute to the natural history and awareness of the great people of this nation about a great cat. So she also knows she gets a treat because she's a great cat. Here's a treat.
Since Sylvia became a resident, she has grown to become a main attraction in the Jaguars exhibit. She loves treats and also performs tricks on command.
She's learned to roll, and at first she was very reluctant. Now she rolls for anybody. Roll for Hyena, roll for Hyena, roll for... Wow, look what you made her do. Huh? So, without having to elaborate, Hyena has a new experience with an endangered species and feels good about the jaguars in her country. So, it's win-win for everybody.
But Sylvia is only one of the stars of this show. These two males are Martin and Lindo, both problem jaguars who have graduated from the rehab program. They now entertain visitors at the zoo. And this one is Sugar Daddy. He's learning how to walk up and down his own runway. But as much as Matola would like to see these cats in the wild, these enclosures may be their best chance of survival.
Once they get to trust people and they know they're not threatened, then they become educators. And it's a wonderful, wonderful thing that we're all very proud of. If life were perfect, I'd let them all go, but they would just go back to their evil ways and get shot. So we have come to a point in rehabilitation where we have to be realistic. Put them back, they're going to get destroyed. Keep them here, they serve as education and research animals. And the world is not a perfect world anymore, but at least it's a good answer to a bad problem, an environmental conflict.
The Belize Zoo's Jaguar Rehabilitation Program plays an important role in the conservation of these wild cats. Studies have shown that there may be only about 800 more of these cats in Belize. As Matola explains, the loss of habitat and dwindling of prey species put these cats at risk of being killed.
Loss of habitat is the huge deal. Belize is losing habitat. The cats that would be hunting in places, they can't hunt anymore. Cats that are damaged, their loss of habitat. Also, their prey species like deer and peccary are also hunted by people. So their usual reasons for sustenance just aren't there anymore. So hopefully the forest reserves we're creating will aid this terrible thing that's happened. But until it does get straightened out, at least there's a program to help the cats.
It is an expensive program to run, and the Belize Zoo is working to add a new jaguar experience to make money to care for these beautiful cats. These days, Junior Buddy is the showman jaguar. He has a popular act called the Junior Buddy Encounter, where visitors give him treats, and in return, he rolls over or lick their heads.
We charge for Junior Buddy experiences, and all that money goes into contributing to the Problem Jaguar program. We're going to start, I'm glad you asked, we're going to start Jaguar tours. We're going to just have a tour centered around our jaguars, charge money for that, and every single cent will go to seeing the program survive and grow and be enhanced.
Reporting for News 5, I'm Andrea Polanco.
And that interview was in 2019, and as we mentioned, that was definitely one of the programs, very innovative programs, that takes place at the Belize Zoo. I know a lot of times people only see the animals there, but there's so much research that goes on as well, and other programs that do help to benefit in maintaining the wildlife that we have in this country.
I certainly hope that they are able to continue with the program, even with the passing of the founder of the program, and that her passion continues through the others that are working at the Belize Zoo.
Well, one of the things I know we have documented in the news over the past year with the pandemic is how they have struggled financially in being able to maintain the animals. They relied a lot on the visitors who came in, and since there is no tourism and there's a restricted movement, it's declined a lot. So this is a great opportunity to show your support and offer a donation at this time. We know the work that Sharon Matola has done in establishing the zoo, and we can show our support and sympathies by being able to offer financial donations as well. All right, but that's all the time we have for today. If you want to contact us, send us an email at oye@channel5belize.com. You can also find us on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ and on Instagram at OYEBelize. Remember to tune in tomorrow morning at 6:30 when you open your eyes.
To start your morning right.
Until then, keep your eyes, your mind,
and your hearts open.
We'll see you soon. Enjoy your day, please.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.